and welcome back to the beta room, Build Stuff 2022. We're down to our last 2 sessions. This has been such an awesome 3 days. Last bit of housekeeping before we move on with our next speaker. After this session, you've got 25 minutes in order to fill out your bingo card and get it handed into reception if you want to hear those win those amazing headphones. And as always, we really can't do things like this without sponsors, so please be a little bit nice to them. Without further ado, I'd like to welcome our next speaker to the stage. We have Dean Schuster, who is a UX strategy expert, and as you can see from behind me, understanding the mysterious behavior of complex digital product users. Take it away.
Thank you. Hey, everybody. Last 2 sessions in beta are all me. So you can hang out and see if you like this one, you just come to the next one. If you hate this one, you should still come to the next one. It'll be great. Okay, so my name is Dean. You can find me at ExperienceDean on Twitter or on Instagram. I'd love to connect with you because a lot of the stuff we'll talk about just sometimes requires more conversation. So I'll be there. I am principal partner owner of a company called TrueMatter in the United States. We do all UX, nothing else. So it's great. And we spend all of our time making complex digital products with development teams all day, every day. And that's what I'm going to talk about today. Understanding the mysterious behavior of complex digital product users. But I'd like to start first with a little story. Once upon a time, this development team created this product. And it's this glorious product. They worked on it forever. They're very proud of it. And here it is. And they loved this thing. They loved how they developed it. They thought, man, we just solved the problem of this app in this sector for this industry. We made it just right. We followed all the rules of usability. We followed all the rules of good design. And we made something that everyone is just going to love. Let's bow before us. Everyone gets a raise. There's only one problem. After bringing it to the market and saying, and here's our great, victorious, wonderful app, one thing happened. The users hated it. And they raw hated it. They didn't just hate it a little bit. They hated everything about it. They hated the bigness of it. They hated the space of it. They hated that they had to go from one step to another and scroll a bunch and they couldn't see everything all at once to do all the work. They hated how it made them inefficient. They hated how they felt like they couldn't get work done as fast as they did before. They hated it so much that it got roundly rejected and it had to be done again. You can imagine by a different team. So the question I have is, why did that happen? Why did something that was built so carefully get rejected like that? And that's the question we're going to answer today. Because a lot of times, if you're, I was imagine most of us are developers or engineers, right? And there's this sort of myth out there that people like Apple and people like Google, they get it right. But your stuff sucks because it's so complex, dense, and awful and tries to do too much, but Apple is clean and pure and crisp, and Google just does one little thing, and you're fine, and it's lovely, and we all breathe the fresh air of usability. But that's not really true for here, right? This was supposedly that thing that failed. It led us to question, just why did it fail? All right? So here's how I sort of sort that out. This is something I've completely made up, what I'm about to tell you, okay? So you take it for what it's worth. But it's going to illustrate a point to all of us I hope we can take home and learn a lot about. So there's this thing I call 4 UI quadrants. Ooh, all right? We're going to do the top and bottom first. Now we're going to put at the bottom rare use. That means stuff we don't use much at all. Once every now and again. We're going to put at the top of this quadrant, stuff we use all the time. Okay, and you can imagine there are things you use all the time. All right, now we're going to go left and right. Over on the left, we're going to have novice users. All right, these are, you know these people, right? They're my mom, okay? They can't handle anything. And that's a spoiler for the next talk. Okay, now, on the other side, we have the power users, right? That's us, right? We're awesome. We can do anything, okay? So we're power users. So now we got a nice little chart, right? We're charting frequency of use from bottom to top. And from left to right, we're talking about experience. Sound good so far? This is how we're gonna phrase the debate here for what makes an interface right. Okay, so now you've got all sorts of great stuff here, right? Constant use by novices, danger, okay? Constant use by power users, us, okay? But today we're just gonna talk about two types of interfaces so that we can understand and juxtapose and compare them and get it right, all right? We're gonna look at things that we use all the time versus things that novice users use every now and again. And it's gonna tell us how interfaces are different and how we can make them better. So it's all gonna come around in a minute. So we can plot different types of products on this scale. So let's think about our novice user, right? Novice user, something people use all the time, texting, right? Anyone can text, even my mom can text, okay? Maybe they're doing stuff like, I don't know, moving money around on a bank site or whatever. This is stuff that most people do all the time. Now, there are some things that novice users don't do very often at all. Maybe planning a vacation, right? Planning a trip. Maybe they're having to do their taxes or whatever. Or here we have a medical survey. These are things that you don't do every day. In fact, you might hardly do them once every few months, maybe once a year, whatever. Make sense? All right. Now, let's look at something that a novice user needs to use all the time, every day. This is Airbnb, if you've ever been there, okay? Good example of a site. Now, booking a vacation should be easy, right? The whole point is that anyone can do it. So when we look at a screen like this, we see super simple. Here we are at Airbnb. That's all you got. You got like nothing else to do, but just start looking. And all the little bits and pieces on this interface are things we recognize all the time, right? It's just a map with stuff. So far, so good. That's Airbnb. When we get to look at a particular place, here's the place. Look, here are pictures. And when we're at the pictures, that's all we're doing. We're just looking at pictures. We don't have anything else to do. So when we expect a novice to handle Airbnb on a mobile device, we better make it super simple for them because you know novice users can't do anything, all right? They're bad at all of it. Again, spoilers for the next talk. So on any of these screens, we're basically doing one thing at a time. We're chilling out. It's open. It's airy. It's simple. It's not scary at all, is it? It feels very like, even I can do that. No problem. Let's look at taxes. Now, in America, taxes are a real complex thing, and everyone's got to do them. And so there's tax software out there to help you do your taxes every year. Now, taxes, especially in America, very complex. This is serious, serious stuff. It's about your income and about, all your deductions. It's crazy. It's hard to understand. Yet, everyone or anyone needs to be able to do it. So now what do we do? All right, it's not exactly Airbnb. It's pretty serious. But the same types of solutions apply. So when we're dealing with novice users, it's always simple. We have give them one thing to do. Here, there's a lot of buttons, but they just have to say whether this year, I got a raise or I got married. Anyone can answer those questions. Very simple. And when you go on the mobile app for something like this, you're barely doing one thing at a time. You're going to do it a lot, and you're going to do it for a couple hours, but it's just one thing at a time. Very, very simple, despite how incredibly complex taxes are. Especially, again, in America, it is complex stuff. Now, what if, let's say, you hurt your shoulder, okay, and you go to the doctor and they do some physical therapy, and at the end they want you to fill out a survey. How did it all go? How are you feeling now? And they hand you a tablet, and the tablet's going to have a bunch of questions on it, right? Maybe it's like this. Now, you could be anybody receiving this tablet. You could be a young person. You could be an old person. You could read very well. Maybe you don't read very well. Maybe you don't see very well. Maybe you're colorblind. Maybe you're blind. Maybe your motor control is not very good, right? Very possible. So when you are handed this thing as a novice user who never uses something ever, man, it's got to be simple. It's got to be really simple. Now, this is as simple almost as it gets. Here's a question. Pick an answer and go. And the buttons are huge, and they're tested correctly, by the way. I can go into that later if you ever want to know why these buttons are huge and why they're placed where they are. It's completely research and usability based and tested. All right? But this works great. And even at the end, you're done. You did it. Right? People who are novice users need things to be that simple. They have to be that simple. They're very anxious all the time. They really are, even if they don't show it. They're saying, I don't know if I can do this. Am I smart enough? Am I going to have to call my son to explain to me how to do this? I just want to get through it without any trouble. I hope I'm not embarrassed. People think I'm dumb. Okay, this is what's going through the mind of novice users all the time, all the time. They want to know at the end of the day, I did it. I booked a room. Or I can't believe I did my taxes. I am awesome. This is what they want. They want satisfaction. This is what they care about. And if you give them that, you're going to get the highest marks from them all the time. Is it easy and is it going to be fine? That's why all these interfaces are the way they are. That's why they're simple. That's why they're open. That's why you do one thing at a time. That's why they use very simple language, very few words, all that stuff. There's a reason for all of it. It's a good reason. Now, the fun people, us, power users. I'm going to go one step further. I'm not just going to say power users. We know us. But let's talk about what I call an expert user. All right, this is a power user who's been trained on something, who uses something so much that they use it maybe all day, every day. Maybe it's about insurance and they have insurance training, not just interface training. They know this thing inside, out, upside down, use it every day. That's an expert user, like a power user on steroids. Now, what do these people need? You find it similar to the things we need, right? They want to be working on, productivity stuff. They want to be working on data dashboards. They're doing complex analysis with software. Crazy stuff, fun to work on, right? And their stuff, maybe it looks a little bit like this. It starts getting super complex. We're talking about data grids. And people who are complex users are like, yeah, I could do stuff with that. It's really exciting. And, okay, this is what they use. Even when they're doing user admin, there's just a lot of complexity there. You wouldn't ever hand this over to a novice user, of course, right? Goes without saying. Modals, right? There's like crazy complex modals that are conditional, all this sort of stuff. Fun stuff. Experts are like us in that they want to know, is it fast? Does it help me do what I need to do right now? Does it get in my way, right? We probably feel this way too. Are you patronizing me? I don't need you to make it, foo-foo flower easy. Just help me do my job. This is what power users say. This is definitely what expert users say. They want to be efficient. Anything that gets in the way of productivity for an expert user is hated. And I mean loathed and hated. Angry hated. So when you're looking for something that has lots and lots of data in it, another data grid, great. Well, an expert user might say something like this. That's nice. Thank you for the data grid. But could we get some more data in the data grid, please? All right. So they might look at a grid like this and say, okay, better. Now we're talking, just fill it. Okay, because I got lots of data to look at. And I don't want to be scrolling because some fancy artist and UX person wanted to make it bigger. I need to see it now. So that's why all the stuff we make for expert users, it is complex. It is dense, right? There's a lot of data. There's a lot of stuff we have to display. There are many things I could do with an interface that has a ton of stuff in it. And I don't even, as a designer or developer, I don't even know what that's going to be yet. I just know they're going to have to use it to do some serious analysis. Today this, tomorrow that. Don't know. It has to support it all, which makes it harder to design, of course. So, ta-da, data dashboard, data grid. Now, it is possible to make things that are this dense that are still highly usable. Now, we'll talk a little bit about that today, but let's make an assumption, which is true in this case, because my company made this. This was heavily tested, heavily researched, and the people who use this every day actually use stuff like this on like multiple monitors staring in front of them all day. They love it. They're very productive with it. They're efficient with it. They think we hung the moon. But this is one of the simplest looking pieces we did. Right? So they loved the complexity and the density. So that leads us to a couple of problems, okay, that are really important for us to think about when we're making interfaces of this sort. And it's that design for expert users is often counterintuitive. It's not what we think it should be, right? Thus the failure of that first design I showed you. It's not what we think it should be. So when we look at just a sea of stars like this, just a few stars, we look at it and go, how nice, a few stars. When we look at something, our brains see patterns and our brains see simplicity, and we view the things that are simple and sparse as easy and approachable. Just what our brains do. Now, when we put more stars in, there's more density, and sometimes what our brains think is, we feel a little complexity. We're a little standoffish about it. But if we were an expert or power user, we'd look at this and say, this is very nice, but what I want are more stars on the screen. More, please. So our job as designers and developers is to figure out how to do that, yet not make something completely awful. Okay? So that leads us to our second problem. And it's a big one. It's that most of the interfaces for complex users, most complex interfaces, are being made by development teams, but being made by development exclusive teams, meaning teams that are just architects, developers, BAs. That's it. Usually no UX people, usually no content strategists, usually no visual designers. And so we're just at a bit of a fix. Like, if we bring in all these artists and humanities people, aren't they just going to create something big, open and airy, try to be Google, try to be Apple, and ruin everything we're making? Or are we going to make it and screw it up all the same because we can't do anything that's visual and usable and stuff like that? And I'm making fun of me too, okay, as an engineer, developer, right? We have a double problem because we might think, I know how to make something better, and let's just put more stuff on it and color it more colors, right? So without some of those other people in the room, you might end up with an interface like this, which is a real interface that's really being used today. And there's lots of stuff like this out there, which is why people like me will have a job forever. There's a ton of this out there. Ton of it. A ton of it. Oh, that's worst. I'm going to talk about this. I'm going to rip this up in my next talk. It's going to be great. Okay, so I talked about those two problems, right? Modern design approaches do not work for complex software. Do not work. And of course, if we're just only have us developers in the room, the chances of us making something usable and wonderful is just not very good. Okay? It just isn't. So what do? Because now you can see why this is hated. If an expert user approaches this, right? They hate everything about this. They wanted to do violence on the team who made it. When they wanted something like this, okay, or even with more density. So the question is sort of how do you do it? Now, I'm going to spend a little bit of time today unpacking a few things you could do to get there. But this is like a workshop. I'm going to condense into like 10 minutes. All right, so it's enough to say at first that if we're not designing for the right user in the right way, we're just going to fail 100% of the time. But let's at least talk about the expert users themselves and how we can figure them out a little bit better and maybe not make that mistake. Now, if we don't have the right people on our team, okay, that's a problem. I admit it, right? But if you don't have a UX person on your team or whatever, well, you know, back in the day, before there were a lot of UX people on teams and before there were a lot of content strategists on teams, developers still had to do this stuff, okay? And a lot of them did really, really well. You just have to follow some of these rules and you still can. First thing is to stay close to your user. You're going to hear that a lot. If you were here for the session before me, there was a lot of that talk, just because it's true. You need to spend time with people who are using the products you make. And now by spend time with them, I literally mean that. Spend time with them. When you want to figure out whether someone could use the thing you're making, the first thing you should do, if it's an existing system, okay, the first thing you should do is just sit down right next to their desk all day long and watch them do their work. And we do this all the time. We did it for the interfaces that I'm showing you. We just sat down and simply watched. Occasionally, we'd ask a question. But the questions are always questions a scientist would ask. We can do that, right? We're developers, we're engineers. Why did you do that? When you did that, what were you trying to do? I notice you're doing something completely different, like you're now in an Excel spreadsheet with some macros that you made. Why? Those are the workarounds, because expert users don't have time for your nonsense. They'll figure out a way to do it, which they do all the time. And part of our problem in making the interface I just showed you was to solve the problem of 8 trillion Excel workarounds that needed to go away, right? But everyone wanted to keep them because they're my Excel workaround. And I love it, and I know it, and I'm fast, and man, I'm good at Excel. But interfaces have to solve that problem. And we should assume nothing about what they're good at or what they're not good at, right? When you sit down and you watch someone work for a while, it's fascinating stuff because their actions will show you something that they can't tell you. Like most people can't tell you why a thing is bad or how you might fix a thing that's bad. They don't really know how to do that. It's just like you wouldn't ask someone to tell you how to code some serious functionality. They don't know. They just know what's broken. They just know what doesn't work right for them. If that makes sense. And if you spend time with them, you'll figure it out. Again, time like a scientist, okay? Not like a crazy, marketing focus group person who just wants to know about, everyone's feelings about something. I don't care about that. I just care what people do. All that matters is what they do. It's important to note that expert users, like power users, like us, hate change. Oh, wait, intermediate users hate change too. And novice users hate change. So I think just like we as humans hate change. So anything we make, no matter how good it is, will probably be disliked at first. Now the question is whether you move from dislike to grudging acceptance to, hey, this is not half bad, to don't take this away from me, right? All that, the difference is there is if you sat down and observed and spent time with those users, you will end up making something that works for them. So, for instance, if the people who made that first design had actually sat down with the users and just watched them work, they would instantly know that what they were about to make would fail. It wouldn't even you wouldn't even have to sit with them for an hour to know this, because you'd watch people doing, data-dense analysis on big old honking screens, and they're having to move them quickly. They're keyboard powered. They're never even using the mouse. They prefer a mental interface if they could get it, and then they're moving on to their Excel spreadsheets, and man, you're learning a lot. And you know that if you make something different from that, you're done, you're toast. And that was just time. Now, A lot of people, actually a really good example of this was the last talk, if you were here. Really awesome rules of UX heuristics. I loved it. It was great. Those rules are true for the novice users, and they're true for us, and they're true for experts. You just apply them differently, and that's the thing, right? So if a thing has a different purpose, you simply make something to accommodate that purpose. Now, if you're designing something for my mom, okay, I encourage you to not do more than one thing on a screen. Like, hi, Mom. Okay, all right? That's basically as simple as you need to be. And my mom's a smart person, okay? Now, if you're designing something for us, we want to be productive. Think about the productivity suites we use when we're coding. Man, we need everything at our fingertips, and we need to see a lot of stuff, and we need to not have to move around to use it, right? And we need to be mega keyboard controlled. We want more. If some is good, more is better. It actually works for us. So a good rule about UX, you hear about it all the time. Well, we need white space because around the white space, it draws us in to see the thing. White space, and designers love it. And they see white space and it makes them a little uncomfortable. Like they need to do something with it. Maybe they need more of it, who knows? Okay. Unique users, unique things. The principles are the same. White space is good. It does draw your eye to something, but what if your user doesn't need it, right? So when you're dealing with data grids and someone wants more and more data in a data grid, I tell you where you need to spend your time on really efficient data grids, right? That's a whole talk. How to do amazing things with data grids to make them more and more useful and still show more and more data. And that, man, we had to learn that when we worked on this project. There's a zillion things you could do about, here, I'll give you a few of them. Okay. How are we doing on time? We good? Yeah, we're good. Okay. For expert users, and again, this is a whole workshop. Just going to give you a few things. You want to conserve space at all times because you need a lot of it, no matter how big the screen is. So there's all sorts of things that we're going to do to make sure we're maximizing an area that we can work in, right? This makes a lot of sense, right? Probably don't have to preach this to you. You have what I call a shell, right? You've got maybe you've got some allowance for nav, or you got something up at the top that says, hey, this is the thing we're making, okay? You got to make that stuff as small as you could possibly make it. So you see some people trying that. It's good, it's smart. You want it to be as small as possible. It'd be better if that thing on the left were gone, right? You want all of that space. If you're dealing with data grids, man, you need that horizontal space, no matter how big your screen is. So you want to maximize what we call the interaction area, which is this entire area inside. This is the stuff I can see readily. I don't have to do anything else. So if I'm an expert user, I need everything in here. Scrolling, very bad for complex users. They hate it. They hate it. In fact, you made me pick up my mouse? How dare you? All right. So if you look at something like this, this was an initial design that failed because we didn't get to the data grid fast enough. Okay, so we had to really revamp this design to pop up the data grid and make all this other stuff smaller and work right. That was because, now this might work for a different type of user, right? But for the complex power user, come on, man, my grid, please. Okay, and so we need data always to be super scannable. So a great rule to think about is at a glance scannability. You need to look at an interface in half a second and know what's there. If you have to work any more than that, you have failed the scannability test. So in this case, you need really strong titles, you need really strong header rows, all this sort of stuff, great color contrast. You need all this stuff so that when I have to look at a lot of data, I can look at it and make sense of it. All right? You tell me when I have to pose, okay? I'll make it really good. Okay, you just tell me, do you need lifting weights pose? Because you tell me. Okay. All right. Icons, sparingly. Don't clutter up an interface with junk if you are building stuff for us, for complex users. We don't need it. We know what we're doing. Okay, we want to get on with it. So here is there's a couple of icons in here, and we almost didn't put that calendar icon in there. We grudgingly put it back. Why? Because the users actually wanted it. Otherwise, it would have been gone. Okay, but it actually signaled a very important. You didn't warn me. I was supposed to give you my yeah. See, look at that, man. Look at that. I'm talking. It's great. It's like I've been yelling the whole time. Okay. Wow. All right, that's going to be a bad picture now. Okay. All right. Okay. And of course, we want to avoid anything clunky and big, which was the thing we saw in the first place. This is horrible, okay? And you know what this is? You know why? It's double horrible because it's a portfolio example from a UX designer who is trying to get a job. And I look at this and say, I would hire you just for the pleasure of immediately firing you. Because there's no way you're getting a job showing me that as a UX designer. All that shows me is you could arrange pretty boxes. Yay. Okay, we want to hide complexity, which means if I don't need to see it now, don't show it to me. All right, if I need to see things only very, very seldom, don't get in my way. So we're going to hide things. There's a zillion ways to hide things. On this screen alone, we could hide the nav bar. We can open up with, we have tabs. We got accordions. We got all sorts of stuff. There's lots of tips and tricks or whatever. The main thing is show only what you need to show. And the things I need to see 80 to 90% of the time, show me that. Don't show me anything else. Get out of my way, okay? Get out of my way. That's what these users need. And I swear, if you spend an hour with them, you'll be like, yeah, that's what you need. Okay. We even hide complexity in forms and modes. There's lots of stuff to do. I'm going to zip right through it. In this case, lots of details associated with particular people are hidden. We hardly ever need that stuff, so it just goes away. Okay. And even with something like teamwork, right, which is a productivity software tool that my company uses, you could still get rid of stuff on the side. You don't need it. In fact, I don't even know why they default to it because we never use it. It was default closed. All right, we just need to see our stuff so we can go. Does that make sense? Okay. Another thing that you need to do is use the right words, okay, for expert users. Now, we're taught, it's not wrong, okay, UX people will tell you this, and they're not wrong, that we should use super simple language, right? We should say, you, go, book, room, and that's it, And they're not wrong about that with mobile users, with novice users, rather. But, expert users, talk to them like adults, because they are, but talk to them like professional, trained, industry expert adults, which is what they are. So use the words they use. If they use big, long, crazy words that have no meaning anywhere else, and they use them all the time, every day, you need to use them. Same why, you wouldn't do that for my mom, right? Jargon, industry jargon, totally fine. You'll hear UX people say, don't use jargon. Don't use words that don't mean anything. No. For these users, yes, use it, right? If they, I don't know what that means, but they do. And that's all that matters. Acronyms are fine. You would say that that's never a thing you should do. For these people, definitely. If you're making a complex interface for people in the military, you better use acronyms. If you don't, they have weapons. Okay. Anyway, you get the idea, okay? Internal terms, no problem. I don't know what any of that stuff means, but the people who use that data dashboard, they got it. And that's all that matters. Okay, another thing you need to be doing, if you're not doing it already, is you should make all of your products accessible. That's WCAG, at least AA, compatible. Usability and accessibility is the same thing, okay? And if you're making things accessible, you're probably making them right for power users or expert users who are preferentially using their keyboard, who are moving fast, and want to get through your system super easily. Accessibility helps. I said you need to spend time with users. Yes, you do. And that means just scientific observation. When you're done, go ahead and test. Again, scientific tests. That's a whole other talk. I'm sure you've been to them. It's great. You got to be a scientist. You test your stuff and see if it actually works. Test all the time. Spend time with users. Test with them. You'll make things right. Believe it or not. Even if you only got like one UX person you can get to. All right? Even if you're just a dev-dominant team. Do that all the time. Always show users real stuff. Don't show them theoretical stuff. They can't handle it. Even power users or expert users need to see the real thing and test it. They can't extrapolate like we can. They don't know what's in our brains. Okay. Couple things. You want to hear about stuff you can read? Sure you do. Okay. Couple of books. Interaction design for complex problem solving. That's a good one. Okay. That's serious quantitative stuff. If you're a developer, you'll enjoy that. That's like sort of UX for the developer, right? And information dashboard design, lots of fun. Lots of good principles in there that illustrate the stuff that I talked about today. Not totally, but it gives you a good feel for it. And you know, I assume that lots of people here, if we're on development teams, we're making stuff that's pretty complex, internal software applications, stuff like that. Okay. Deep breath. You can do it. That's it. Okay, that's me. My name is Dean. You can reach me at all these places, no problem. If you have a question, I will attempt to answer it. And if you really just not had enough of me, I'm talking again in like 15 minutes right here. Yay.
Thank you so much for that. It's, I don't know if I have questions. I have comments, but I'm going to see whether or not we've got questions in the room first. Are there any hands that are going to go up here for questions? Wow. Is anybody hiding behind a post or anything? No? Okay.
All right.
The questions, my questions are going to come to you on Twitter once I've like processed all of this. But I did just want to say, it's what you were saying about sitting with your users. My experience of that in previous jobs has been, I used to work for an insurance company.
Mm-hmm,
and in the Netherlands, everybody has to have health insurance in November or December. You're not allowed to buy it any other time.
Yeah, October for us.
And the entire company went on the phones, and they were speaking with the users. And the amount of ideas and improvements that you got from the developers and the product owners helping the users that have gone wrong on the site was just phenomenal. It's our most productive time of the year, even though no one was sitting behind a machine.
Right, so we're developers, we're engineers, right? All we need to know is the right problem to solve. That's it. If we have the right problem, we'll do it. And that's what I really should do a talk on just how to do that, how to sit down and watch someone work in order to get the stuff. Maybe I'll do that another time.
Awesome.
So, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. See you all at 3:55.
Right here.